Hello, and welcome to definitely the last part in our Instagram playlist here. Um, I am going to have to do one full video here on Instagram, and then there will be one wrap up video on the future of the Meta platforms. So there's only 3 slides in this video. Hopefully, it'll be pretty short. Um, I want to start with the keys to success on Instagram for brands. Um, if you haven't kind of figured this out by now. A lot of companies are really struggling with multiple meta platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all of them. And the keys to success are off. There's some common themes. And on Instagram, I mean, you can take a lot of what I said for Facebook earlier and apply it here. You can take these 3 things and apply them to Facebook. But the number one thing is brands need to post authentic content and avoid the overly corporate boilerplate messaging. That graphic I showed earlier, that Big Bear AI graphic, was not, I wouldn't call it overly corporate, but I also wouldn't call it authentic. And I also wouldn't call it showing the people because that was a stock image. So you see a lot of companies that are stuck in that mode where maybe they have gotten through past the overly corporate boilerplate messaging, but they are still in this weird purgatory where the content doesn't feel authentic and it might not even show the people at all. It's certainly a struggle, but the companies that put forth the effort and get real photos and good photos too, not every authentic photos can be difficult to get. It can be difficult to get them in a high quality. But those that do are the ones that are going to do well. Um, but again, the keys to success is just essentially you got to turn the brand into something more personal. And there are too many that stay too professional. And that's kind of what leads me to my why businesses fail slide because there are too many companies that either have already failed on Instagram and they've given up, or they just really struggle and continue the struggle where they just cross post from other platforms. And that's where we start. There are so many businesses that fail on the gram because one, it's not number one. It is often not the number one platform for brands, especially B2B. I would argue if one, most B2B companies are not even on social media, and if they are, it's a check a box. Two, they are on social media because they're on LinkedIn number one, and then Instagram is just because somebody said that they should be. Not a not a very convincing reason. Um, but then even if the businesses give it a good try and they really work hard at it, you end up with too many levels of bureaucracy, too many approvals, too many stuff that gets first shot down and then finally approved, um, or or the reverse, where the company tries to lean into it, but then it becomes overproduced corporate cringe. If you want to see a video that is overproduced corporate cringe, go online and look up, I believe it's one of the major consulting companies, one of the major consulting businesses who tried to hop onto an Instagram trend. And man, I don't even remember. I got to remember what it was called. Um, but it's a situation where we just see too many companies trying too hard and really failing spectacularly in the end. Think of the video where people would say, well, I think it started with "We're millennials, we don't do this or we do Y," and then that grew into other trends. I mean, it was bad from the start with the original version, and then the fact that some companies tried it really it was a bad look. It was poor. It was like killing the brand's awareness. It was just in general pretty negative. Um, So, those first three, content that's based from other platforms, overproduced corporate cringe, too much bureaucracy, killing creativity, all three of those lead to this fourth one. In that all of those reasons kind of lead to the fourth reason, in that there's no point in following the brand. If a company is just posting overproduced corporate boilerplate, or it's stuff that was clearly made for LinkedIn, for example, and there's overproduced corporate graphics that you might find in a year end report or a white paper, that's not a reason to follow the page. People follow brands on Instagram because they make them feel something. They provide value. They do something. They motivate, they educate, they inspire, they do something. And if your content is overproduced, if there's too much bureaucracy, if it's just copy pasta from somewhere else, then it's just not going to lead to new followers. Now, all of this, all of this being said, is well, it's pretty it's pretty interesting because, well, we are at a point where businesses fail and they don't care. Not only do they not care, and it's not the person posting who doesn't care. It's well, sometimes it is. Usually, it's the executives who don't care. Um, a lot of times, there are company execs out there who they care about LinkedIn. They might even care about Facebook or Twitter or X, and they don't seem to really care about Instagram. It's like a distant, like, what? Why? Why does that matter? Um, and I mean, this isn't one of these, but my thought has always been the fact that the executives aren't there on that platform, tells me that they don't, like, if they're not seeing the failure themselves, then it doesn't matter to them. Now that's more anecdotal. Really, the big reasons why they don't care. One is there's no organic ROI. You can't include links other than in the bio. All you're getting are brand awareness numbers. In the earlier introductory videos, I talked at length about, I talked a little bit, I should say, about metrics, and I talked about objectives. KPIs are really important with social media. And if you haven't mapped out how Instagram ties to brand awareness and how brand awareness ties to larger business objectives, Instagram is not going to work. But then there's also no true industry standards. And I wouldn't say that there aren't best practices, because there are. And I like to assign case studies about companies like Duolingo, who have been able to personify a mascot into an edgy person, character. But most companies don't have that luxury. And companies like Duolingo or Wendy's back in the day with Twitter, they just weren't, those were not realistic options for brands. The take home back then and now with Duolingo is that, hey, brands need to be more real. They need to be edgy. They can't be so buttoned up and stuffy. And sometimes brands do the right thing, and they hire the right person for the job, and they get them doing it. But then even if they do try putting out some edgy things, you still are stuck in this weird in between, because either it's not edgy enough, because there's still a bureaucratic line that they won't cross. But then also, on the other hand, people might not just won't buy it. And part of that is, with Duolingo, it's a bird. It's supposed to be a person. It's supposed to be a mascot. It's supposed to not be a company talking. But when you're hiding behind a shield or a logo or something that gives off this essence of professionalism and business, on social media, that just doesn't fly. And as a result, you don't have real true industry standards. Now, the last part is again they don't care. There's no consequence. Um, companies aren't major businesses are not relying on Instagram. You look at a company like Coca-Cola, you look at their Instagram presence, and you will see there's not much going on there. They have a lot of partnerships. They have a lot of influencers posting stuff. You just see people drinking Coca-Cola. But if Coca-Cola's Instagram account got nuked today, nobody would care, at least for the company. The company wouldn't care. The company would not see any change in financial performance. No, I mean, some people might say, "Oh my God, the Coca-Cola Instagram account's gone," and people will ask questions about that, but nothing will change. And there are too many large businesses that are like that. And honestly, there's no reason for them. When a company is that big, they don't need to invest the amount required to truly make a difference. The reason Duolingo succeeded with Instagram is because it was clearly the conduit to the business's significant growth, from one quarter to another to another to another. Now I think it's plateaued, and so there's not as much going on there. But Duolingo saw a big jump, largely because the brand went from just another run of the mill language learning platform to the green bird. It became something different. It became something that stood apart from its competitors, and it became the number one language learning app in the App Store because of it. If companies don't have a consequence, though, if Instagram is just there off to the side doing its own little dance, um, there's no consequence for failure, which means that there's no incentive to succeed. So that's kind of this world we're stuck in here with how so many businesses are struggling on Instagram. And again, if you work in sports, if you work in media, technology, like you work in these for retail, like a lot of B2C, a lot of these fun businesses that you see succeed, like these are the exceptions. These are not the rule. The reason that you see them all the time is because you like their posts, you engage with them, you comment, you are a visitor, you're a customer. But in the B2B world, especially, this is not. Nobody knows and nobody cares. Um, tried to write a case study on a B2B company that has succeeded on Instagram, and it is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to find a company because too often, even if you do find one, they are using Instagram to build up the B2B, the B2C, business to consumer side of the company. So that's my kind of long form story on this, and why I think businesses are struggling, but there are some real reasons for this based on some surveys done. But if you want a company that's not struggling, it's Meta. So our last video, our last three slides will be about that in our final part of the Instagram series.